because, as you said, it is the final one of the day. Let's make it a good one. We have Federico Camporesi, of course, LAIC top 32 in 2025, Gdansk regional champion, 2023 World Cup Tour top 4 in Italy, and 2023 World's top 4, with, of course, a fairly standard team that we have seen a few times already, but interesting nonetheless to see.
Yeah, I mean, stacked resume, right? And of course, here too, I think interesting because this team that you're seeing here, right, is kind of a more frequent variation we're seeing of the previous team that performed well from Victor Bedina at LAIC, right? Except that now we're seeing the new variant kind of Cineroar over that Golden Go, right? Which makes a lot of sense. Obviously gives you some more answers into sleep. You're able to kind of position around. You have that parting shot access, and also running wide guard on the Pelipper, which is different than the original team in Tailwind. So having a lot of good options here, I think. I don't know how much the wide guard change is going to matter in this instance, but definitely I think having Incineroar will be a big deal. Because you will gain the option of going for parting shots, being able to pivot out, right? But I do want to bring attention to the next team we're going to be playing featuring here on Nikhil Reddy's. It's going to actually be a Parish team, and typically, you don't get to see Parish Song too much in current VGC just because of the nature of how fast every format is. But notably, it is here. And I also want to bring attention to Nikhil's achievements as well, right? You have Utrecht Special Champion, you have the Low Regional Top 32, World Cup Top 8 India, and then World Cup Top 8 India. So India's really good at making it to Top 8 and further now, right? So you definitely see
exactly.
that. But and also too, I want to bring one more note here. Spore on Amoonguss, Hypnosis on Gothitelle, and Hypnosis on Politoed.
See, it's just when you really want that sleep. If Direct Claw isn't hitting for you, sometimes you have to have other options, being of course Hypnosis right now. It's interesting to see Gothitelle take a role in this team as well, because we have seen older teams with Parish Song, with Politoed and Gothitelle. It's also a very nice Pokemon to make sure that you are getting through the turns with Intimidate, Cycling, Parting Shot as well. I'm just looking forward to seeing the possibility of having this Parish Song mode, because that is something that I don't see all too often. So, unless your name is Wolfglick, I guess.
Yeah, and I think an interesting thing to note here too is that even though it's a Parish team, the Archaludon and Basque Legion aren't running Protect, which is a little bit something that maybe you'd expect to see Protect on in some cases. That being said, with the Choice Band, kind of gives you access to run Flip Turn, right? Because you're not running Protect. And also, too, notably, the Protect being thrown on the Incineroar instead. So if you set up a board state in which, you get a Parish Song, you need to stall that last turnout, Incineroar can do that. So I think that's actually a pretty cool tech. Usually you see it on the Parish. But it definitely looking forward to this match. It's going to be interesting to see because it feels like our Chaludon from both sides are very impactful, but Federico has some cool ways to play around this Parish, right? You have Sinistcha, which is a ghost type, can switch out, right? You have Terra Ghost Ursaluna, and you have an Incineroar with Parting Shot. So a lot of good tools there. We'll have to see how that works out, but we are going to be getting into this game.
Yep, exactly. As the players have chosen the lead, it is Archaludon and the Basque Legion from Nikhil's side, while we have Ursaluna and the Dragonite from Federico's side. So right off the bat, you have the fear of a potential switch in to boost the Archaludon with its Electro Shots, or even the possibility of Basque Legion just trying to do as massive amount of damage as it can possibly do.
It is worth noting too that in this circumstance, right, you are able to go for a potential switch on Ursaluna. You're able to just go for a Protect and get your Flame Orb activated, or you could even just opt to go for a double completely scout out the turn, right? The nice thing about a lead like this is you open up a lot of flexibility and you can scout out exactly what the Basque Legion wants to do, especially if you're covering for a play such as Flip Turn and Electro Shot, right? Potentially locking the Archaludon into using Electro Shot. You know exactly what it needs to do that next turn. And we are going to see Flip Turn come out into the Dragon.
Yeah, but it is, instead of an Electro Shot, it is going to be the Dracometer. Just trying to break that multi-scale and just trying to get rid of this Dragonite almost immediately. Of course, this Dragonite now has the option to foresee the future, as a Flip Turn is going to happen, most likely. But what will this Archaludon itself do? Because it can easily switch up moves, because this Dragonite does have the option to just Terrestrialize into that Steel typing, making sure that it is able to take, at the very least, a Draco Meteor.
The big question is does Nikhil know that Federico's Dragonite is pretty fast? If we got a little peek at the stats there, and we are going to see it as a little bit faster. If this Tailwind goes up first and Ursaluna is just able to get all this damage down on the board, it could be absolutely devastating. We are going to see Terra Grass come out here, which is good for blocking the ground type damage. But if you're able to get a bunch of damage with this Ursaluna, potentially even knock out the Basculegion, this could be an incredibly devastating turn, right? Because at that point, then you can just start going for hazes, you can start going for more damage. And it seems as if maybe the same play by Nikhil was locked, and if Ursaluna is able to get this cut on the Basculegion moving first, it could be really scary.
Yeah, exactly. We have the Dragonite with the Tailwind. As you said, Dragonite is devastatingly fast here. So that means this Ursaluna will be the next to move. It is the Earthquake coming out. Not going to do all that much to the Archaludon for now. But look at the damage onto that Basculegion. As Stamina will boost this Dragonite, of course. Flip turn into Ursaluna. Now that it's no longer weak to it, we'll be taking it a bit better at the very least.
Oh, is Draco going into the Ursaluna? If Draco goes into that Ursaluna, it might just be able to get the knockout. It could also be Electro Shot as well. Most likely, probably Draco Meteor, though. We are going to see Amoonguss come in here. Is Draco Meteor coming out? Yes, it is.
Yes.
Is it going to get the knockout?
Oh!
No, it does not. So it's able to take it, and that's a huge live. At that point now, like, you have so much pressure with this Facade the next turn.
Yeah, exactly. This Dragonite carrying that haze, as you mentioned earlier as well, being able to get rid of any sort of defense boost that this Archaludon might go for. You are then, of course, helping the Archaludon in the way that it has now. It is now -2, but you are in Tailwind. You have an Ursaluna, and both of these Pokemon are slow at this point. Protect from the Amoonguss will be make sure that it's safe. We have the haze coming out, meaning this Archaludon will take quite a bit of damage here from this Facade.
I think it's going down.
And it is gone.
Yeah, not the position you want to be in for sure if you're on the Archaludon side. I mean, I think like it was a bit tricky because I think what Nikhil was kind of thinking is like, okay, Amoonguss is like the target because the opponent's scared of like Spore, right? But realistically speaking, it's actually very low impact because if you knock out the Archaludon, like Basculegion's so low on health, like the resources are very limited, right? So at this point now, you just have such like strong momentum. If you're on Fede side, you're feeling really good about the situation. Sure, could a potential Aqua Jet come out, knock out my Ursaluna? Absolutely. If it does, though, it's a Basculegion locked into Aqua Jet and then Amoonguss, right? So your Dragonite doesn't really care, and you have opportunities to wake up. If it opts to go for something like a regular attack, great. It goes down to Earthquake, right? So at this point, it really does feel like it's just a position where Federico is heavily gaining like ground off of just these like passive board states that now Nikhil's forced to be in because of that Facade KOing Archaludon.
Yep, let's take a look at how much the skill shot is doing. Is it 4? Is it 5? That is 2 already. But yeah, being in this position, of course, Amoonguss now has the opportunity to put this Dragonite to sleep. But with that Tailwind boost, having to keep up the pressure here. Also, Basculegion just locked into Aqua Jet is also not the thing.
Eject button.
I forgot about that. Wait,
it doesn't even get to attack. It actually got to do nothing because of the eject button.
I forgot.
Also, oh my god! Which means now that, oh wow, that's actually way worse because you would have wanted to get the sleep down, right?
Yeah.
Like at that point now you have a Politoed and a Basculegion, and you used up your terrestrialization. There's a full health Archaludon in the back with the Electro Shot. The eject button just like completely actually backfiring on Nikhil, right? Like you would want any other item in that situation.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, that's just a devastating turn. I actually don't even know how you're supposed to recover from
this is looking a very dire situation right now. Switching out to Basculegion, now to the Amoonguss, trying to fix the board set kinda as we have skill shot coming into the Amoonguss. This time Amoonguss will not be switching out. But you know, where there's hypnosis, there's a way. You know, like all right, your Spore might not have worked, but this
does Politoed live? That's the question.
That's also a very good question because I have no idea if Politoed is one keen to survive this electro shot right now.
It's pretty specially bulky. I don't know. I think it might just be able to pick up. It really depends on how the Archaludon and Politoed are trained, but we are going to see it come out here. It is not going to get the knockout, which means that Hypnosis does have the potential of coming out here.
Okay, eating. It's time for a little snack there with the citrus berry. So let's take a look at what is it. It is Hypnosis at the immediate hit to try and break this game. It is somewhat back, I want to say.
It's actually a little scary for Fede now because okay, so it's actually a bit weird, right? So
Yeah.
here Scale Shot has to come into Mungus. So if you're on Nikhil's side, you need to throw Hypnosis into this Dragon. If you're able to connect Hypnosis, Last Respects actually can reverse sweep the entire team because you're able to just bring in Basket Legion and start cleaning Last Respect. So the tricky thing here is now, are you going to be in a position, right, where your Dragonite's sleeping, or is it awake? Because with these Scale Shot boosts, it will be at +3 speed, which means it will outspeed Basket Legion even in the rain. So is the... Oh, it doesn't even hit max times, which is actually worse. But that's worse because now you're in a circumstance where it's awkward. Yeah.
Oh. This is where eject button would be very nice, honestly.
Yeah, right? Yeah, it's actually really funny.
Another Hypnosis hits here. Amoog is still on the field. I'm unsure what it is going to try.
Oh, no,
it's just a Spore. Just in case, trying to make sure that this Dragonite would have been gone. But now, you need to rely on this Archelodon still being a slave for a turn. Like, if you want to switch to the Basket Legion, this feels awkward, to say the very least. Politoed is the one opted to switch here.
Yeah, the problem here, too, is that because the Amoonguss is down, your Last Respects is actually considerably weaker, right?
Yeah.
So now Archelodon wakes up. I think that might just be like... Is it? I'm trying to think if there's like a way out of that situation, because it's going to go into Amoonguss. Amoonguss is going to get knocked out here, obviously, right? And then we're going to see the Politoed come back in. But the problem here then is that now what you would need to do to win is you would need to be able to get that Last Respect into the Archelodon, get the knockout, have Dragonite not wake up, and then have Dragonite not wake up again to Scale Shot, like to not Scale Shot your Basket. So the odds are definitely stacked against Nikhil here, and it's actually really funny. Like you just mentioned this, I'm still thinking about it. Like how detrimental the eject button was the first time, and how important it would have been the second time, right? But that's kind of how the item works, right? Is when you're running an item like that, you are at risk sometimes of like it backfiring on you.
Yeah, we have Last Respects into the Archelodon, not even going to KO it. Being in this position, Electroshock, it is faster than Politoed as well, so this Archelodon will be able to run with the game. Okay, like, honestly, being able to be put in a position where Politoed was still a win condition with Hypnosis was kind of funny to see, because the option was still there. Unfortunately, not getting the 5 hits on the KO on the moves was just, that was the thing to seal the deal here. As honestly, wait. Wait.
Okay, hold on. Okay,
well,
the thing is that unfortunately, I think for Nikhil, you can just haze away the drops, right? So you just haze away the drops, and then you just go for like a dragon attack with the Archelodon. You could also just switch here as well. That's another way to go about it, right? You could just body press it. I think definitely what Nikhil has to consider going into these next couple of games is going to be, okay, if that Ursaluna Dragonite is in the lead, I have to absolutely make sure it's not able to get too much value. Right? Talked about how that Haze Facade play early on, getting rid of the Archelodon, was huge. And it's because you kind of cleared the way for a lot of your other resources, right? Being able to safely have that Archelodon in the back for the rest of the Rain team. And I think he'll really has to be aware of that going into the next.
Yeah. It is funny to me how this Politoed is really trying to still win the game with all of these accuracy drops. But the skill shot does manage to connect and will be taking out the Politoed, giving the game 1 to Federico. I honestly... thinking about the situation that we have at hand, what is the correct adaptation? Just the hard call of the Haze and the Ursaluna being able to facade the Archelodon was so good at that time as well. Just being able to get rid of that humongous threat. But yeah, positioning your Basket Legion is also quite important. Of course, I'm not playing the team. The team with, especially because I forgot about eject button as well as an item. To just,
it's kind of hard to remember. It's like a weird item, right? Like, I mean, obviously, like it makes sense on this team, but when you're looking at the board, like I feel like it's very easy to forget about it because it's like, you know, if you're not looking at the team sheet in front of you, you're like, okay, it's an Amoonguss. Like every Amoonguss has like Citrus or Rocky. Like when I was watching the turn play out, I was like, oh, if it 5 hits, it procs Citrus Berry. And then like I see the item proc, I'm like, oh yeah, leftovers. I'm like, wait, what? Oh wait, no, it's not leftovers. It's actually eject button, you know? So I definitely think that it's something that you can exploit if you're on Fede's side for sure. That being said, though, it's really interesting because you could also exploit it on Nikhil's side as well, right? So, for example, maybe on one of those turns where you're expecting a big hit to go to one of the Pokemon, you don't want to take it, like maybe a ground move in the Basculegion, you switch in Amoonguss, take the hit, Basculegion comes back in and make it a fresh move, right? So there's definitely some cool applications of it. I think the one tricky thing for Nikhil here is that if you're bringing the Archaludon, Basculegion, Politoed, and Amoonguss, you're always going to kind of be at a disadvantage versus the opposing Archaludon if they're able to navigate around your Amoonguss and your own Archaludon, right? So I would say it's hard for sure, and I think that maybe we could see a bit of a like maybe an adjustment from Nikhil. Like even a Gothitelle and Incineroar lead into something like Dragonite and Ursaluna could have been really cool. You would have eventually you force Terraghost on the Ursaluna, and then maybe you could capitalize off of that with like Last Respect from Basculegion. Honestly,
not bad shout. Let's see how Nikhil will adapt here, because like I feel like that is an interesting way to look at it. With just going with Incineroar Gothitelle, but let's see, it is Gothitelle at the very least with the Basculegion this time, as Federico saw that his lead worked well round 1, so let's do it for round 2 again.
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting lead as well, because now you can potentially threaten a like there's no switches here, right? So you are forcing the Terraghost out, kind of like what I mentioned when we were talking before the match. A big thing too is that you could potentially, if you're calling the Dragonite to play more conservative around the fake out, you could just opt to go for something like a switch immediately into Incineroar and a attack. You can also just opt to straight go for something like fake out and wave crash, right? So there's a couple of strong options here that you definitely have to consider if you're on Fede's side, but we are going to see the Terraghost come out here. So obviously this lead kind of forcing the Terraghost to come out here, so you have the ability to switch and take the water type attacks.
Yep, so with that Terraghost not being able to be affected by Fake Out, but it is Dragonite that is targeted. Wave Crash, it is going into that Ursaluna. It will be taking quite a bit of damage, but it will be hanging on just as well. Earthquake now, we saw how much damage it did earlier to the Basculegion. Let's see how well this Gothitelle is able to take it.
Ooh. Yeah, that's a lot of damage. That is a lot of damage to be taking turn 1. It's like, you obviously, like, there are some ways that you obviously put yourself in decent positions, but the amount of resources traded on that turn 1 is pretty devastating for Nikhil, right? Obviously no knockout was taken, but when you lose, when your Gothitelle's brought down to yellow, when your Basculegion is super low on health like that, now you're essentially in a circumstance in which you're losing a lot of potential to switch in later on in the game, right? And essentially too, if Fede opts to preserve this Ursaluna, get a Tailwind up and maybe save it for late game, that could be pretty devastating here as well, because it is one of the main ways that you check the Archaludon on the field side.
Yeah, we have the Gothitelle actually switching out. With that Terraghost, I just realized as well, it is able to switch out during Shadow Tag, because we have seen Federico, of course, lock that in. We have the Politoed switching in, putting up the Rain as well, because now Sinistcha is able to switch in, get that multi-scale back onto that Dragonite as well. And either of these Pokemon are very willing to take a Wave Crash from this Basculegion, because with the multi-scale, Dragon typing, and also the resist of Sinistcha, they will be able to take it quite well. The Terra as well, just going for that Terra Water, so going for maximum damage output right now, having to deal with
Dragonite, I think. That's going into Dragonite, because what Nikhil was trying to do there was catch the Dragonite without multi-scale and get a Terra Water Wave Crash into it. But Fede actually covering for that and switching in Sinistcha now to actually block it. It is going in the Dragonite. So was trying to snipe that knockout, but was not able to get it because of the really heads-up play from Fede, honestly. I mean, at that point now, making that call was really good, but the scale shot is going to miss. So, Nikhil obviously avoiding a really bad punish to a play that, obviously was pretty good on paper, but Fede just saw right through that play and just went for the switch.
Yeah, that is wow. The level of play here is getting kind of big brain here. So with that skill sharpness, you do manage to have Rage Powder on Sinistcha. You're able to redirect in that regard. Politoed, only real. You have Parasong, you have Muddy Water. You can Hypnosis if you really trusting that Hypnosis there, but I did not want to trust that, as Nikhil is actually switching out as well. It is the Archelon this time. This seems like a better board state at the very least for this Archelon than it was 2 turns ago.
Definitely, and with Hypnosis coming out here, it is going to be connecting on the Sinistcha. This now is a lot better of a situation for Nikhil. So a good reposition here, being able to get the Archelon in front of these two Pokemon is really strong. Now, where you have to be careful here, because you're not necessarily out of the woods yet, is how do you stop Ursaluna from being able to knock out your Archelon? So you have to make sure that Ursaluna doesn't get in a position where it can actually pressure an attack into you. But that being said, it also has a really tough task ahead of him. It's how do I deal with this entire team, right, and get to the Ursaluna before the Sinistcha wakes up and is able to redirect my attack? Right?
Yeah.
So we're going to see no switches here. We are going to see instantly wake up as well, so that's a little rough.
That is quite rough. The Matcha Gotcha, of course, super effective on this Politoed, taking quite damage. No burn. Wait, that's still possible. Stamina boost at the very least, as no burn on either of these Pokemon. Electroshot coming out. The instant wake up on this Sinistcha looking quite good right now, being able to make sure that you are able to redirect any type of attack after the Dragonite was able to set up the Tailwind just as well. So this is looking like a prime target for Ursaluna to be able to switch in.
But did Hypnosis come out here? If Hypnosis came out, no, it did not. If Hypnosis had come out here again to cover for the wake up, that could have actually been a really good turn, right? You would have been able to obviously get the you would have been able to get the sleep down, then you would have been able to pressure the Ursaluna with a terrestrialization to Terra Grass and an attack. Now, it's still a circumstance in which your Archelon could be okay, but it is a little bit trickier because there is a bit of a mind game associated with the turn. Most likely, the safest play here from Tio's perspective, right, is maybe trying to preserve the Arch, but it is just going to be a straight headlong into it. It does live as well.
It lives?
I think it might be able to live the Matcha Gotcha as well. If it can hang on from this Matcha Gotcha, it's a quad resist. It would be able to get a bunch of damage done, and it would swing the game heavily in Nikhil's favor. Is it going to survive? It does on very low health.
This is devastating. It can be a very good turn here right now. This Archelon still has to make its move, and because of Tailwind, we have the burn onto the Politoed. Something you don't like to see, and the burn onto the Archelon, unfortunately, as well. It will go down at the end of this turn, but make it count right now because there was no redirection. We have a little bit of a snack break with the Citrus Berry, of course, for the Politoed. And we have the Electroshot coming out. If this just goes into the Ursaluna, that is gone. And then we still have Politoed being able to pause potentially Hypnosis at the very least. Yes, Electroshot into the Ursaluna, and that will deal with that at the very least. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, without the burn there, it could have even been even better, right? You would have just been potentially able to kind of get a better turn out of it. But we are going to see Muddy Water comes out here, was also covering in case the Archelon had gone down to be able to knock out the Ursaluna. The big thing here is that now, because you got the burn, even though obviously it's not traditionally that great, you are able to get your Basket Legion in a better position to go for a Last Respects, right? So that is definitely a really good option here. You also obviously have a stronger Last Respects because of the power difference. So you have a couple different plays here. I do think the end game that you probably see as most likely here, if you're looking from Nikhil's point of view, would be I want to get Last Respects to the center, right?
Yeah.
Then I want to be able to, well, actually, no Basket Legion, so that's already a different board state. But here, I'm not too sure what you would do besides Fake Out and Perish Song. But even then, it gets a little tricky because there are a lot of turns for this Archelon to attack into the Gothitelle. And because the Gothitelle isn't a recovery item, you're not necessarily in a position in which this Gothitelle can not take damage. But it's going to be a Protect, actually, which is really interesting.
Okay, yeah, the play that I was potentially seeing was trying to go for the Hypnosis onto the, of course, onto the Sinistcha. If one of these two Pokemon do go down, that gives you the opportunity to bring in the Basket Legion, Archelon, to then have the full power of Last Respects, and hopefully the Sinistcha can stay asleep for 2 turns. But yeah, I'm trying to think here what the other option is.
I think maybe what you're trying to do here is stall at the last turn of Rain so that there's no Electroshot potential. But now because you allowed Archelon to Electroshot, Flash Cannon just pressures the KO and there's really no way to stop it. So I think Nikhil maybe not seeing the fully best way to be able to lock out the situation. I would have liked your play as well of Fake Out and Hypnosis. But we're going to see a double protect come out here, which does give some more options. Flash Cannon comes out here. The real question is Nikhil going to be able to do that Hypnosis? If Hypnosis goes into the Archelodon, you do get some, options here that you can potentially exploit. But it's a little bit of a suspicious range, right? Machagacha still does some damage, and we're going to see it knock out the Politoed. So not the best turn. You will be able, at the very least, to get a Last Respects into one of the 2 Pokemon. But the thing is, Rage Powder and Flash Cannon into Basket Legion seems very safe here.
Yeah, I don't see a very good way around it as well. As you said, like the Sinistcha really showing off the amount of support that it was able to give this game alone, being able to restore multiscale, giving the threat of that, just having to have that Rage Powder, and then Machagacha working out quite nicely, being able to pick up the KO on the Archelodon in that regard. Last Respects into the Sinistcha, that will of course KO, as now it is only the Archelodon and this Gothitelle. If Gothitelle is faster and is able to hit, no, that's unfortunate. That was, of course, if it was fast. I wasn't sure if it would be faster, but yeah.
So probably showing that's like max speed Gothitelle, right? To be able to outspeed Archelodon like that, but even then it's a little bit scary, right? So if you're able to obviously get that Hypnosis off, right? Like it's nice, but the thing is you would still need it to sleep in, right?